I've lost weight and now I want to divorce my husband. Sorry for the long post. We've been married for 5 years and together for 7 years. We also have a 3-year-old kid. After having the baby, I struggled a lot with losing the baby weight and adjusting to being a parent. I also had the baby blues at first, which was tough. I wasn't really focused on my appearance and instead I was trying to figure out our new routine and way of life. But then my husband started making these little comments about my body and how I should start working out and wearing makeup again. It made me feel really awful and I worried that he might start looking elsewhere because we weren't being intimate anymore. He even suggested hiring a nanny so I could have more time for myself, but I wanted to be there for our baby full time, so I turned down the offer. That made him angry and he started acting cold towards me. Months went by without any hugs, kisses, romance, or any kind of affection. My self-esteem hit rock bottom. Every time I looked in the mirror, all I saw were the flaws that my husband pointed out. By this point, our son was already 2 years old and I desperately wanted to win my husband back. I thought that if I got in shape again, he would show me love and affection and our marriage would be saved. I craved his attention so much and it hurt to see how much things had changed. But you can't force someone to be affectionate. I took matters into my own hands and hired some help. With more free time, I started going to the gym, taking swimming classes, which are amazing for your back by the way, getting my hair and lashes done regularly and eating healthier. And guess what? I've lost a ton of weight and I feel amazing. Suddenly, my husband started touching me, kissing me, buying me flowers and treating me like the complete opposite of how he treated me before. You'd think that would make me feel better, but for some reason, it made me feel worse. All I could think about were the hurtful things he said to me when I was at my lowest and how cold he was towards me. I get that you can't force attraction, but why couldn't he just hug me or give me a kiss on the cheek even when I was overweight? Why couldn't he love me as a human being and the mother of his child? When my self-esteem came back, I got really angry at myself for putting up with his behavior for so long. A few days ago, I told him I wanted a divorce because I don't think I can move past how badly he treated me. He apologized and promised to change and prove that he can be better. But honestly, I'm not sure if I can trust him again. What if I gain weight again or have to deal with health issues? Will he treat me like garbage again? I've talked to some friends and family about the whole situation and some say I should give him another chance, while others say I should leave him. So I'm turning to Reddit for some advice. Am I justified in being upset over this? Do you think it's possible for my husband to change his behavior for the long term, or is a divorce the right move here? Update. Thanks a lot for all the advice you gave me after my last post. It was really tough to make a decision, especially considering our son. So I sat down with my husband and had a conversation about what happened. He kept saying sorry, but I asked him if he actually understood why his behavior was hurtful. He just kept saying he was being a jerk, but I felt like he didn't really grasp why it was a problem. So I broke it down for him. I told him that saying I still look pregnant 3 months after giving birth or calling me a mess because of my dark circles, rolling his eyes when I wanted to show affection, not talking to me for days without any reason and not wanting to spend time together were all really hurtful. And on top of that, he didn't offer the help so I could take care of my mental health. Instead, he wanted me to go to the gym and get in shape. When I reminded him of all this, he couldn't even look me in the eye and didn't say a word. The silence in the room was so thick, you could cut it with a knife. I just don't think he fully understands how badly he treated me. No amount of extra weight can justify that kind of behavior. I wouldn't treat a stranger like that, let alone someone I love. But for the sake of our son, I still offered him couples counseling. And guess what? He refused. He said he was afraid that the therapist and I would team up against him and make things worse. We went round and round in circles, and after almost 3 hours of talking, I finally had enough and told him I wanted a divorce. He tried to convince me that he could prove he can change, but when I asked him how, he just said I had to have faith in him and see it for myself down the line. That's just not good enough for me. I told him I was taking our son to my mom's place for the weekend and that we would discuss everything before finalizing the divorce on Monday. He said okay, and we left. But now he won't stop blowing up my phone, begging for a second chance and telling me how much he loves me and how he made a mistake. It's really disheartening to see how much he changed after we had our son. All I ever wanted from him was love, loyalty, and respect. But he didn't give me any of that in the past few years. I still wanted to give him a chance, but he doesn't want to put in the work to make things better. If it comes to that, I'll be able to raise our son on my own as I'm financially independent and secure. I also have a lot of help, so it'll be okay. I still want him to be a part of our son's life and be the best daddy he can be. But I can't be with someone who doesn't love or respect me. I wanted to thank you again for all your support and the advice you gave me. I thought my husband was the person I would grow old with, but the universe has other plans for me. It will be really hard to let him go, but I'm hoping it's for the better. 27/F. I'm engaged to 44/M, and my best friend of 3 years, 39/M, just told me he loves me. This is a throwaway as I do not want it associated with my primary account. Also, I know that this sub has a huge issue with large age gaps, so I would like to point out that the age gap between my fiancé and I is not the center of this post, and I would appreciate it if you kept your opinions about that to yourselves, please. Now, some backstory. I met my best friend Trevor, 39/M, and my fiancé Burke, 44/M, almost 5 years ago when I was 22, and they were 40 and 34. They both work together, and for privacy purposes, I'm keeping their occupation as secret, but I met Burke first and we became good friends, and then I met Trevor next. I was immediately infatuated with Trevor. Him and I spoke quite a bit. We went out on a few dates and I thought he felt the same way about me, but one day he dropped a bomb on me where he basically told me he never felt anything for me other than friendship and doesn't want to lead me on anymore. I played it cool and pretended that I too only wanted friendship, and he laughed and said, "Great, glad we're on the same page." I was bitter and spiteful at first, but eventually I got over it, and Trevor and I became best friends. Instead of avoiding him and cutting him out, my pride got in the way and I didn't want to appear butthurt, so I carried on like nothing happened. I have zero feelings for Trevor now. We're much better off being friends than lovers anyway. Before, I only ever saw Burke when he was at work. Him and I had a running joke where I owed him a date. He gave me a lift home one day because it was raining and he said, "Now you owe me dinner," and after joking around about it for a few years, one day I said, "The heck with it, Burke, let's go get dinner." So we went out as friends and had a good time, and we kept hanging out afterwards, going out for coffee and dinner and to the beach, and then, after a few months of hanging out, I developed feelings for him, and apparently he also had feelings for me, and one evening after a Game of Thrones marathon, we ended up having sex. Burke and I slept together for a few months and we weren't sure if our feelings were because of the sex or if we really did like one another, so we stopped with the sex and the feelings never left, so we just decided to start dating. And it's been pretty great ever since. We have had minimal problems, and the ones we have had were easily resolved. Burke and I have been together for 2.5 years, living together for 1.5 years, and engaged for almost a year. We're getting married in a month. Burke and Trevor have grown a bit closer since Burke and I got together, and Trevor is even going to be one of Burke's groomsmen in the wedding. I thought everything was perfect and we were all one big happy family. Now for my problem. Trevor and I went out for a walk last night, and before we parted ways he told me he's in love with me. He told me that back then when we first met he didn't feel it at the time, but as I've gotten older and matured and whatever, he suddenly realized that he made a mistake and he thinks we are compatible and that I became the kind of woman he wants to date. But when he realized this, Burke and I announced our relationship to the world. I told Trevor that this was the worst timing. I can't believe he did this to me. I'm getting married in a month and that this is totally messed up. He told me he's sorry, but he had to let his feelings be known now before I get married. He said he also hopes that some part of me still wants him, and then he told me to take some time to process this and let him know my decision later on in the week. My decision? I still love Burke. He's the man I'm going to marry. All my feelings for Trevor left years ago as soon as I realized he was leading me on and never felt anything for me. I don't know what I'm going to do. This is going to change everything. Trevor and I will no longer be friends. Our wedding is going to be one man short, and not to mention Burke and Trevor still work together and they have to interact with one another quite a bit at work, and this is going to be such a mess. Part of me also feels like this is Trevor continuing to mess around with my head. He didn't want me back then, so I moved on, and now that I'm getting married he wants what he can't have. I have no idea. I have to tell me soon-to-be husband, but I don't know when or how. Like, when he comes home from work, do I just blurt it out? Do I do it over supper? Do I do it before bed? I know that this is going to cause a pretty big awkward mess, and I want to sort this out with as minimal casualties as possible. Burke worked late last night, so when he came home I had already finished bawling my eyes out and I was fast asleep, and when he woke up this morning I had already left for work. It's 12:12 p.m. here where I live, and Burke will be home at 7 p.m. That gives me 7 hours to work this out in my head. I'm so upset right now. I just lost my best friend. There's no way Trevor and I can continue hanging out anymore, and once I tell Burke he's most likely not going to like me continuing to talk to Trevor, which is understandable. Sorry if this post is long and all over the place, I'm just so stressed out. Any advice will be greatly appreciated. TLDR, my best friend just told me he's in love with me a month before I'm getting married to another man, and he hopes I have feelings for him and wants me to make a decision. I obviously choose my future husband, but how do I break the news to him? My best friend was supposed to be a part of our wedding, and he works with my fiancée, so this is going to be messy. Update. So, I didn't get a crazy amount of attention on my last post, but I still decided it deserved an update nonetheless. I'd like to thank you all for your comments, they really helped. First, I spoke to Burke that night. He came home from work, and before he got too comfy, I told him we needed to talk, and then we sat down and spoke. I started by telling him about the start of mine and Trevor's relationship because he didn't know how our friendship began. I then told him about how he confessed to being in love with me and how I have zero feelings for him. I love Burke and only Burke, and he's the man I'm going to marry. Burke didn't look too surprised. He said he had a feeling that something like this was going to happen because every time Trevor, Burke and I are in the same general area, Trevor always has this look on his face and seems annoyed and agitated in general. He always assumed Trevor was salty about our relationship together. Apparently, it's common gossip around the workplace that Trevor wants a piece of Burke's woman. Burke also told me that he's kind of glad this happened in a way because part of him always worried that I had feelings for Trevor or was going to leave him for Trevor because Trevor is a bit closer to my age than he is. I messaged Trevor and told him that there was no choice and that I love Burke and I'm getting married to him next month. Trevor left me on read and removed me from FB almost immediately afterwards. I've seen him out in public a few times here and there, but we never spoke. He wouldn't even look at me. After about a week or two, he texted me and told me that he's sorry things had to come to this. He was almost 100% certain that I still had feelings for him and that this was going to have a different ending. He told me he's kicking himself in the ass for dicking me around in the past and missing out on his chance with me, and told me if I changed my mind I know how to contact him. I never replied. I feel closer to my fiancé more than ever, and we've both decided to try for a baby, smiley face. I've been thinking of asking Burke about starting a family for a while now, but I wanted to wait until after the wedding so I wasn't trying to squeeze my pregnant belly into a wedding dress, and apparently he was having the same thoughts as I was. I took my last PCP on Saturday, and we've both been really busy putting in some last-minute wedding plans and trying to make a baby. Thanks for your help, Reddit. A piece of me still feels hollow because I just lost my best friend of 5 years, and part of me wishes there was a different outcome where I could have both my man and my bestie in my life and things could go back to the way they used to be, but I know that's impossible. But I'll be okay in the end. I wish I could invite you all to the wedding, but sadly we're already full. TLDR, told my fiancé that my best friend confessed to being in love with me. My fiancé wasn't surprised because he had his suspicions all along. My best friend is on longer in my life. I'm upset about that, but I'll be okay. I'm getting married in 3 weeks, and my fiancé and I are also trying for a baby.